When Arturia announced that they were going to release a new product on their anniversary date, like many others, I thought it was going to be the KeyLab MK3.
The current Mark II version of this keyboard came out in 2018, so we are long overdue for an update.
Then we got the AstroLab, which has everything the Arturia ecosystem has to offer in a performance keyboard, except for one really noticeable omission: performance pads. Considering the price and limitations of it being only a performance keyboard, it had many people asking, why don't I just get a KeyLab in the V collection and call it a day? A couple of obvious answers would be the inclusion of things like pigments and having everything on one piece of hardware instead of needing to plug into a computer. But I'm not a player, I'm a producer. Not only that, I have a whole flagship already at my disposal. But the Phantom doesn't communicate with the new iMac. As you can see, the iMac sees the Phantom because everything's hooked in. When you go to dock control, it says please connect. Hooked in through MIDI and hooked in through USB. Nothing comes out to control. But the Mac sees you. While the iMac could see the Phantom doesn't seem to recognize the iOS, which means that I can't use it as a MIDI keyboard like I did with Windows, even with running it through the interface. And after all these years, I still need pads. Now, I've been using little Tussinn's MPK Mini in the meantime, but I can't stand playing mini keys. Not only that, I just can't deal with only 8 pads for sample-based production. Now that brings us back to the KeyLab MK2. Now, I wasn't in the camp of people hating on the AstroLab, far from it. Seeing a few of our friends get down, I respect the release. Even if it did have performance pads, it was still out of my price range. That said, I've been wanting a KeyLab for a minute, but waiting for a new one with polyphonic aftertouch and MPE. The last thing I wanted to do was get an MK2, only to have the MK3 be released immediately afterwards. However, we're not in the cool kids club and have no idea if or when we'll ever see a KeyLab MK3. That said, I'm not going to wait another year to upgrade my MIDI controller. All I need is some decent keys and 16 performance pads, leaving the choices between the Alesis, the Akai, and the Arturia. Now, I went back and forth between the MPK and the KeyLab back in 2018, which is how I originally stumbled on Ben Jordan's YouTube channel.
No exaggeration, this is the best MIDI controller I've ever owned. My first impression when unboxing the KeyLab MK2 was that it's extremely well made. It has wood panels, there's definitely some metal in there, and it has that same heavy, nice type of plastic that the BeatStep Pro has. It actually feels quite a lot like you're actually playing the synth that the software is emulating. Just like the BeatStep Pro here, once again, Arturia, I am confused how you managed to make a product with this many features that's this well built and it cost that little. I am willing to say it is the best and most featured MIDI keyboard I have ever owned.
After that, I was sold, but then COVID hit and I ended up with the Phantom instead. So here we are, all these years later, with the Arturia KeyLab MK2 in 2024. One thing that I've read complaints about is that there is not a full note velocity on the pads. The primary thing we're going to be using these pads for is Serato samples, so we're going to be using them more as trigger performance pads, so the full velocity thing doesn't really concern us too much. Any compatibility issues are also not really a big deal because the primary thing that we got this for is for the hardware, not really for integration. While that's a big selling point here, having AnalogLab is a huge benefit, especially having the Pro version. Like UVI, Arturia is a massive ecosystem, so I look forward to digging in and getting involved, but for now, AnalogLab Pro is more than enough. We don't even need that. We got this solely for the hardware, wanted to wait it out for the MK3, but well, the pads were the biggest selling point, but also the keys and the hardware overall. This is a solid build.
The keys are obviously not hammer action, nor should anybody expect that for under $1,000 on a MIDI keyboard, but they are extremely well made, and I really like the way that it handles velocity. It just feels like a really well-made, expensive synthesizer.
The funny thing about that is looking at the KeyLab right next to the Phantom, they both appear to be within the same tier of keyboard. Like I said, it's a quality build and I look forward to using it as my primary MIDI controller. We're not sponsored by Arturia or anything. This just happens to be one of those ironies of the universe, especially considering that we have another Arturia related announcement coming in a few days, so stay tuned. Take care, y'all.
Time to get some Tussinn, time to get some Tussinn, Tussinn. Time to get some Tussinn, time to get some Tussinn, Tussinn. Time to get some Tussinn, time to get some Tussinn, Tussinn. Time to get some Tussinn, time to get some